Hello friends, it's Lauren. Thanks for joining me in my craft room for today. It is the last day of the month, so it's Halloween, but it's also Saturday, so we're going to use some Sassy Club products. I'm using the Ghosty 6x6 paper pad. I picked two of the most rainbowy vibrant colors of paper in that collection. I'm also using the Circle Layers die, and my images are from the Hey Ghoul Hey Clair stamp set. So I'm going to go ahead and run that circle layers die over, or not over, but to cut my circles out of those two pieces of patterned paper. Now, I will realize much later that these panels are 4.5 by 5.5. So just keep that in mind when you use this die set in the future. I stamped all of my images using my Sassy Club Onyx black ink. I think I stamped them 3 times because I very much need to re-ink my ink pad. I'll go ahead and clean off those stamps and set my Misty aside, and we'll zoom in here and get started on some coloring. Now there's a lot of images, so I'm just going to run through each color combination. So for all of my orange, I'm using O2.4 and O2.2 using Olo markers. These are like my go-to for right now. No, I love them so much. I still very much use my Ohuhu art markers, but I'm definitely loving my Olo markers. And so I started with a darker shade. I think almost, I'm trying to think of all the colors right now. I think I only used 2 for each color family. So again, just 2.4 and 2.20 for the orange. So I started with adding in the darker color to give some shadow and dimension to this little cute adorable mouse pumpkin. And then I brought in the 2.2 and blended that out. And I wanted those ears to have a little bit of like a circular highlight. So I waited till the very end to color around the edges for those. I did use that same color combination for the other 2 pumpkin-like things on the card. For the yellow, I'm using Y2.3 and Y2.2. These are very close in shade. You probably could just use 2.2 to be honest. For the greens, I accidentally started with my lighter one first. Funny enough, the G0.4 is actually the darker of the 2 that I'm using. So G0.4 and G1.4. So I'm going to go ahead and just add a little bit more shadow, try to give those green areas some dimension. For my ghosts, I'm using B2.2 and B2.0. I wanted them to look blue, but also look white or clear, kind of Caspery ghostish, right? So I'm starting with adding my darker parts, again 2.2. I'm not going to the edge of my ghosts. I'm going to leave that to be white. I'm not even going to use my lighter shade. I'm going to try to leave those edges just as is and color in the rest with B2.0. There is kind of a big jump between the two, but I'm okay with leaving that darker area for my ghosts. I think as the alcohol dries, it ends up looking really good. I like this kind of translucent white look that it gives my little ghost here. So that is my color combination and how I colored all of my ghosts. For the ghosts that have tongue sticking out, I'm using R0.2 and R0.1, keeping it very light like my ghost. I use R0.3 to color in the red of this little original mouse. You know me, I don't like to try to say the names of my fandom. I like to protect my fandom companies. So his cute little hat with ears. So I did the red and the circle, and then I'm using CG9 and CG7 to color in the hat. Again, want those edges to be the lightest, so I'm going to color those in last. I just think it turns so cute. I love these so much. For the blue images like candy, I'm using darker shades of B, so B2.6 and B2.4. I just want to bring in lots of colors to the different images because, again, I use those very rainbowy, crazy, but amazing patterns from that paper pad. For the pinks, I'm using RV 0.4 and RV 0.2. Just trying to, again, I've got like red, yellow, green, and blue for my candies. For some purple, I'm going to color in the map and the balloon with V2.4 and V2.3. I'm also going to bring in a little bit of purple onto my witch's hat. That little bat, I'm going to color it in purple in a little bit. I don't think I do it on camera, but I do use purple there as well. I do color in the broom with yellow and purple, and then I'm using this color combination 07.3 and 07.1. I did that for the broom handle, but I thought it would be better to show the coloring of my little mummy ghost instead, so I wanted to share that. So I'm using, again, those two shades, technically of an orange color, but they're a really nice like tan brown color to color in my little mummy wrapping. I definitely think you could skip some of these areas where I colored in the mummy wrap and make them still like the ghost blue color, but my mummy is very covered up except for his little like nose area and at the bottom. Then finally for my little train, a singular rail train, I guess a monorail. That's like not just a fandom thing. Those are everywhere. So this little monorail toy, I colored in with white and pink. I just wanted to bring in a little bit more of that pink since it was only on the candy. Now, as I like to do, I'm going to restamp my images with the VersaFine Clair in Nocturne to give them a really dark, crisp edge. Again, I think VersaFine Clairs are some of the best ink pads on the market, but again, they're not alcohol marker friendly, so I do use my favorite Sassy Club ink for coloring, and then sometimes I'll just go back over with a Clair just to really brighten and crisp up any stamped images. So I'll go ahead and clean these off. I'm also going to put my images onto my scan and cut and have that cut while I move on to my sentiment. So I decided to do some embossing. So I'm using some sentiment stock from Pear Blossom Press. It is the perfect black cardstock to emboss on. So I'm going to stamp 2 sentiments because I'm going to make 2 cards today. So I'm doing Boo to You and Hey Ghoul Hey, which is such an adorable stamp set. My daughter Abby was totally in a Hey Girl Hey phase, so she loved this sentiment, and I usually send my cards to the Sassy Club. That one might go missing. We'll see if she gets to it before I mail my next batch of cards. So I'm going to use some anti-static powder. I use a tool from Rabbit Hole Designs, and then I'm stamping with my Brutus Monroe clear embossing ink, those 2 sentiments, and I'm going to use some detail white embossing powder. This one is from Ink on 3, the Arctic White Ultra Fine. So I went ahead and tapped off the excess, and I'm melting it down with my heat gun on the highest setting. I do have one with 2 settings, so normal setting if you just have a 1 setting heat gun. Once it cooled down, I know through the magic of editing it looks like I did it right away, but I waited till that embossing was cooled down, and then I wiped off the excess anti-static powder with a Swiffer cloth, and then I'm just going to fussy cut around my 2 sentiments. So I like to keep my scissors in place and move my paper to cut around the sentiments. So with that, my scan and cut was also done. All of my pieces are ready. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull apart all of my circle pieces and separate them out. And I'm actually going to do one of my card bases off camera because I didn't realize it was not A2 in size at first, that it was actually 4.5 inches wide. So the first time I put the circles together on a card base, I mess up. I have to peel off things, move things around. So I just wanted to share how to do it correctly on an A2 card base. So you can see one of my backgrounds is already done. Now, I don't always, edit out all my mistakes. I like to show when I do something silly and how I recover, but there really is no recovering on this other than just, doing it right. Here you can see I'm measuring it. It's 4.5 by 5.5. So I'm going to take my A2 card base. I'm just going directly to that. You could definitely do it on a panel and avoid this whole thing, but I'm going to center my first little curve here, part of a circle, doing my best to center onto that card base. There's an even amount sticking off the card base on the left and the right to the best of my ability. And then I butted it right up against the scored line of my card base. And then I'm adding in the 2 little kind of corner pieces, which would be part of this outer circle if it all fit onto this panel. And then I'm doing the first full circle. Again, I'm trying to make sure that it's butted up against each piece and that the flat edges of that circle line up with the edges of that first arch that I glued down. And then I put in one more circle, and then I'm going to move to the bottom. So I'm going to glue that last arch piece on the bottom, and as you can see, it butts up to the edge of my card base. So that's going to be the part where my card opens. And then I added those two little corner pieces, just like I did on the other side. And then I'll finish filling in my circle with my last kind of ring circle here, and then the inner circle. So that's how I put that together. Like I said, I didn't realize it wasn't E2. So for the other card, I started in a corner. And so I was like not understanding why things weren't lining up correctly. So that's just how I put mine together. As you can see, there's a little bit on the sides because it is 4.5 and an A2 card is 4.25. So I'm just going to trim those off. No big deal. Just lining up my scissors to the edge of the card base and trimming down. I love that it's, different than A2, so you can use it for another style of card or project, but it's very easily adaptable to an A2 card base. So now that my two backgrounds are done, I'm going to do like kind of a dry run of figuring out how I want all of my little ghosties to be on this card, split up the sentiment, split up the like extra pieces like the map, balloon, the spider web. Actually, most of those are going to go on the card on the left because there's only going to be there's 3 ghosts on the right, 2 on the left. So some of these extra Halloween decor pieces will be on the left. So I'm arranging them, trying to think of how they're going to look. And once I'm happy with the layout, I'm going to start adhering everything onto the card fronts. I'm going to use some thinner foam adhesive to adhere everything down. I kept things pretty simple because these cards are pretty wild in a good way. They have a very busy background and these images are so cute, but they're also busy. And I know I like to use vellum in between, but I felt like it was fine. Like the background was still light enough and the images were still kind of like bold enough. Those lines are so bold. One of my favorite things about Sassy Club is the bold outline of all the stamps. So I don't think I need that vellum to kind of add a bit of a barrier between the two. So once I have those layouts, I'm just going to start adhering them down. So I'm using this calls for confetti thinner foam squares. I think it's probably 1 millimeter thick, maybe less. I'm not sure. It's a great thickness. I love these foam squares. So I add foam squares to the back of all my images, to the back of my sentiment. So I'm not going to show you me adding foam squares and peeling off the release paper. I'm just going to show you adding them to the cards so you could just see how I layered everything together. And I'm just going to cut between the two to wrap this up because I know this is kind of a longer video. But once I get everything in place, I was going to finish the cards. I thought about adding maybe some gems or sequins or pops of color, but honestly, I think these backgrounds are perfect enough on their own. I know, surprise, surprise, I didn't add anything glittery or shiny to these cards. I kept them just like fun and cartoony. I let the backgrounds and the images just speak for themselves. I didn't think adding anything shiny would really do anything for the card. So I just think they turned out really fun and adorable. I hope that Sandra from the Sassy Club loves them as much as I do. I think they turned out so fun. And again, she might just get this card as Abby might be swiping the other one. We'll see. But I think these images are so fun. I love how the ghost turned out. As you can see, it really lightened up as the alcohol dried. And I just think they make really fun white, but yet still have that blue hue for the ghosts. One more look at these two adorable cards for the last day of the month, Halloween, Sassy Club edition. I hope you enjoyed watching these silly cards come together. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll click like, and if you're new here, I hope you'll subscribe and come back. As always, you can find everything I use down below in the description box. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye!